Welcome to the Fan2Fan Podcast 5 Minute Frights, wherein, give or take 5 minutes, we'll try to share something creepy, kooky, mysterious, spooky, something fun and frightful that you can add to your to-watch queue as we all get ready for Halloween season. My name is Bernie Gonzalez, and on this episode, we're talking to Fan2Fan All-Stars Allan and Rebecca, and Rebecca shares one of her scary favorites. Rebecca, take it away.
A very recent one works perfectly with the type of horror watcher that I am, is A Quiet Place.
Military fighting a massive invasion around the world. Total devastation.
It is a new movie that was done really well. It was scary. The way that there were barely any lines in it. The anticipation makes it fantastic. And I was wonderfully surprised by John Krasinski making it and the work that both him and his wife did in the movie.
Now, were you a fan of The Office, Rebecca, when it was on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The Office theme song was our intro to our wedding reception.
Love it. I asked that because John Krasinski will always be Jim to me. So
Yes.
When this first came out, Jim directed a movie. I mean, John Krasinski directed a movie, but he did a hell of a good job with this. He did a very nice job of balancing out the thrilling aspects of it, the alien piece where we're not always going to show it to you. And sometimes that's more scary than seeing it all the time.
I think it had this ability to not show the monsters, the aliens, very often in like the first, 3/4 of the movie, right? Mm-hmm. Until the bitter end, when we get to see them a little bit more closely and kind of see, just the threat of the aliens. I don't know that there's been a lot of movies made like A Quiet Place in the horror genre.
I think your dog agrees.
Marv gives it the 2 paws up.
We went to the movies for this one.
Awesome.
I saw it in theaters.
So let's just really quickly, we have had to medvac Rebecca out of a couple of different terrifying horror movies over the last couple of years. Sobbing into her popcorn. She sat through A Quiet Place, despite how terrifying it was, between Krasinski and Jordan Peele with Get Out. I think we have a whole new age of horror that we might not have had before. I don't think we did have it before, to be quite honest. But
the only thing I think of is like a movie like Alien, where Ridley Scott is like, hey, we're in space, right? And it's sci-fi, but also the alien might as well be Michael Myers because he's standing in the dark instead of a kitchen knife. He's got his acid blood and the little chomper thing that comes out of his mouth. All the tropes are kind of there. Ripley's the final girl. Everything is kind of there. But if you went to someone that was like a diehard, I don't watch horror movies fan, and you said, oh, have you seen Alien? Well, of course, it's a classic. It's a sci-fi class. It's like, it's got that Venn diagram where it's like, if you want it to be a sci-fi movie, that's what it is. If you want it to be more of a horror movie, it certainly checks the boxes too, because it's a little bit of all that. And that's probably what makes it succeed really well.
And that's what I love about it not being a huge horror fan, is where things can kind of touch on these other genres.
I was going to say, when I do think of A Quiet Place too, outside of John Krasinski, the daughter, she's played by Millicent Simmons. How they use sound in that movie, like the only reference point I have is if you guys ever saw Mission Impossible, the first one with Tom Cruise in a theater, the part where he breaks into that room and he has to rappel down and get I think it was the knock list with all the secret agents on there. But the idea is that like he can't trigger any sound or he has to kind of, I just remember being in the theater watching that. Brian De Palma, who directed it, it was kind of like really smart because it made everyone in the theater be quiet, even though we all know we're watching a movie. We can't impact what's happening on screen. You kind of want to be like, well, I don't want to be the one that ruins this. What John Krasinski did with that character of his daughter in the movie, she was kind of like the audience. Well, what if we took this really important sense away from you and you still had to kind of survive, but also gave her that superpower because of her perspective? Actually, she may be the one that makes it.
Yes. And I do love that part was given to an actual deaf actress. I think that's really important to open up the diversity of people that we have in Hollywood, but also for the authenticity of the movie.
The sound thing could have been a gimmick, but I think it was done so well. Quickly, I think audiences realized that it rose above that and became obviously an integral part of the story. And I think someone like Krasinski and Jordan Peele, like these are directors and people producing these movies that are bringing the rationing tension back into rather than just the shock scares. It's the building tension. It's the building dread. I mean, who's not like scrunching up with the nail in the steps at the end of A Quiet Place, because it's coming. That's and it's just a matter of when and it's just like, and again,
mentioning that, I felt it down my spine. I'm like,
it just takes you right back there. Yeah.
There's something to be said for using fear and building that tension up within, like you feel your body tensing as you're watching it, as opposed to just like throw the cat at the screen. But I think it's more effective when you can build that sense of dread and get your brain thinking like, what's going to happen now? Or what am I seeing? What am I not seeing? Your imagination is always going to make things 20 times more terrifying than what could be shown on screen.
It always makes for a more interesting rewatch as well.
Yeah.
When you have the, when you have the dread factor, you have you just said something that sparked my mind on this was, you're looking on the screen for what am I missing? I need to see everything. And if you go back and watch any of these newer horror movies, there are like little Easter eggs in a lot of these scenes that you missed the first time through, and you pick them up the second time, and it makes it a whole new experience for you. And I think just and one more thing on these is the person who started this new age creep factor, less on the jump outs and more on like the building dread was M. Night Shyamalan, right? Like with The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable and Signs, one of Rebecca's honorable mentions. I think that he did take the time to build an almost frame by frame sense of like if he moves that camera 5 feet to the right, we're going to see something we don't want to see and jump out of our seats.